Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and here I am on the road, headed to another comic book con. Now, this is a new one for me, sort of. This is going to be up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it is the Four-State Comic Con. It is the same con that they had in Hagerstown, Maryland a few months ago, and it is more of a pop culture con than it is a comic con. I would imagine it's going to be exactly the same, judging by the guests alone that they have there. You're going to have, there's wrestlers, there's really good artists and creators, there's going to be some comic book dealers. I can guarantee there's going to be a lot of toys, and there's going to be a lot of anime. And it was a lot of fun going to Hagerstown. It wasn't a comic book show per se, it was a con. It had all these different things. And I had a really good time, and even though there wasn't a lot of comic book dealers, but no, this was the one in Hagerstown. And the dealers that were there, what was good about it was, even though there were a couple local dealers there from the Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia area, you had some other dealers I'd never seen before, and that's who I ended up probably buying most of my books from. Well, on this particular day, I've actually got a choice. I could go to the con I'm going to up in Harrisburg, or I could go to a comic book show down in Annandale, Virginia, the one I go to frequently just about every month of the year. But I decided to go to this con because of the same reason that I enjoyed the one in Hagerstown, is that you had dealers that I have never seen before. That's what I'm hoping I'm going to find up here. Nothing against the dealers down in Annandale. Some of them I've gotten to know really well over the last few years, and I'm sure they're all down there today. But I wanted to branch out and try some different dealers. It's not that dealers don't get new inventory all the time, but it did feel like I was seeing recycled stock, the same books, the same pricing structure over and over again. And I'm just looking for something new today. So I'm going to go up to the con and check it out. I will take as much footage as I can. Hopefully we'll find some pretty good books, maybe some toys, you never know. But there's one artist in particular there that I'm bringing one book to get signed at this con. So stay tuned. I will be right back after you see some of the footage, and we'll go over everything that I did today. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. All right, everybody, I just finished up at the 4-State Comic-Con here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm headed back to Maryland. Once I get back there, I'll show off everything that I picked up, and we'll talk about the show in depth. But I had a great time. It was just like the con that they hold down in Hagerstown, Maryland earlier this year. Pretty much the same kind of setup, but they did have much more room, so you never felt crowded. And they felt like they had more comic book dealers than they normally would have had in, say, in Hagerstown. And I did recognize some of the dealers. There are some of the local Maryland type dealers that I see all the time, but there were some other dealers specifically from Pittsburgh that were here, and I was able to pick up some really good books, some really interesting things that I've got today. I was able to meet Michael Golden and get a book signed by him, and I'll show that off once I get home as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And I also got to meet John Gallagher. I've already met him before, but if you can tell by the shirt, it's a little hard to see here. I'm wearing the Baltimore Comic-Con shirt from a couple of years ago that he did the artwork for, and I had to go by and say hi. I didn't have anything for him to sign, but I did say, I said, I saw that you were going to be here. I had to wear this shirt and just come by and say hi. And we had a nice talk, and I'll talk a little, maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that as well once I get home. But guys, sit tight. I'll be right back once again. And again, I hope you enjoyed some of that footage. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
2 hours later.
All right, everybody, I made it back to Maryland safe and sound, and I had a great time up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for the 4-State Comic-Con. Now, as I said in the intro, this was the same convention that they have in Hagerstown, Maryland earlier this year, and I had a fun time there as well. But I will tell you, I think I actually enjoyed this one better. You had some artists that I was really interested in getting an autograph. Like I said, I did get an autograph from Michael Golden, and we'll go over that in a moment. But there seemed to be more comic book dealers, and even that included some of the regular dealers that I would normally find here in the Baltimore area. And there was a lot of good books, and I picked up a few things. I didn't pick up everything I saw, mostly because I picked up one big book at the end, and I kind of blew the budget at that point. But again, I had a great time, and I would highly recommend you guys checking out the 4-State Comic-Con, whether it's in Hagerstown, Maryland, or in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I had a great time. So the first thing I picked up at the 4-State Comic-Con was not a comic book. It was this right here. It is a book. Believe it or not, guys, I actually do read books with words and everything, and there's no pictures in here, so don't get the wrong idea. And as I said, there were a lot of writers there, and normally I don't go into too many of the novels like that, but this writer right here, of this book right here, Villains Never Die, Nick DeWolf, and let me see if I can set this up here without everything falling over. I actually met him. He was the first person that I talked to when I went to the Hershey Comic-Con earlier this year. You guys might have just seen the video that came out on that. And in that video, when I did some montage, I actually showed his book stand, his stand, and showed you some of these books. And I talked with him for a few minutes at that con, and he told me the concept behind this book. I told him, I said, I really wasn't into the novels. I was here for the comic books. And he basically gave him an opportunity to pitch this book right here, which straight up, it sounded a lot like the concept behind Mark Millar's Wanted, the comic book, not the movie, but the comic book. And I don't know if it's actually going to go there in the same vein or not, but the concept, that's what I thought of immediately. And after I left the con, I'm going, I kind of wish I picked that book up right there from him. And I went and looked online, and I could have picked it up online, but I just kind of held back. And when I was here at Harrisburg for this con, and I'm walking around, and who happens to be there, I recognized it immediately. And he started to go into the normal sales pitch by somebody who hasn't known about him or anything, Nick DeWolf, that is. And I said, yeah, I know exactly who you are. You wrote this book right here. I'm going to pick this up. And I said, we met at the Hershey Comic-Con. In fact, I was doing the YouTube channel. I told him I was doing that. And he remembered me from that. And he ended up autographing that, and he signed it right there. And it says, "To Rusty, thanks for coming by, Nick DeWolf." So, Nick, if you watch the video, I will give you a shout out here, and I'll probably give you a review after I read the book on Amazon. That's where you're selling most of these books, it looks like, online. So I will definitely give you a review online once I finish reading the book. But guys, I actually picked up a real book, not just a comic book, a real book. All right, so moving on from that, I'm looking at the comics I've picked up at this con, and I realized it really is a cross-section of a lot of different things that I enjoy about this hobby. And the first two books here are from Groundbreaking Comics. This is a dealer from the Baltimore area that I see set up all the time. He sets up at Heroes Con. He sets up at a lot of cons. I think he even does the big con in Chicago as well, C2E2. But he's always at most of the local shows here in Baltimore as well. A lot of new books. There's older books in there, but mostly new books and new variants. You can get a ton of variant covers or even ratio covers from him for really decent prices. And I wasn't looking for a lot of stuff, but with the Baltimore Comic-Con coming up, you've got Michael Cho, who is going to be here. And I had picked these books up earlier, but to be quite honest with you, I had them ready to go to Heroes Con, and when I didn't go to that, I kind of misplaced the books. And let me show you what I picked up. I picked up the Virgin foil cover for the first issue of Space Ghost from Dynamite. And this is of course, it's a Virgin, even though it does have sort of that. It's not just the artwork. You basically got rid of the trade dress right there. And I picked that up, and I picked up the non-foil version as well. And I'm hoping to get Michael Cho to sign this when he's in Baltimore. I've been saving up the other issues, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as well. I'm hoping to get all of these covers signed by Michael Cho. So here we go. We're hitting the collecting aspect where it's about autographs. And that's what this was about right here. So this is not for investment. This is for fun. I love getting autographs from the creators. It gives you that excuse to go and talk with them and meet them and talk about the work and everything. So that's why we picked that up. And then I was looking around. I literally filmed everything you saw in the footage of the show, the montage. I filmed everything at the very beginning. I did a walkthrough before I even started looking at books seriously. But once I finished walking around 100%, I put the camera down and I actually started going through some of the bins. And I didn't know what I was necessarily looking for. I did look at when I was filming, I was looking at everybody's walls to see if anything stood out. And I also know that I'm also working on an Invaders run. I'm down to about 5 issues or so. And I ended up going to a dealer who had $3 back issues. It was, trust me, the books are good, but they're not necessarily in a 100% near mint or mint condition, but very fine plus, near mint minus condition on some of these books. I ended up finding one of the books I needed, issue number 15 of The Invaders. And for $3, I can't pass that up because what I was finding, just a side note right now, since I'm thinking about it, you were finding a lot of dealers who had really good prices. And I'll touch on that a little bit further into this episode as well. There are definitely some dealers there that had prices that were still 2 years ago prices. And honestly, I didn't really buy from them because I felt like the prices were too high. I ended up going to dealers that had good prices. They were looking to move books. Now, that's not to say that every dealer that was there were overpriced. I'm just saying that there's definitely some dealers that are still overpriced out there. And I just have to, in fact, after I looked at the wall, I knew some of these dealers and I didn't even talk to them because their books are way too high to begin with. And then to get a discount to something more reasonable, I've had experience with some of them and it's like pulling teeth and it's not worth my time. So I concentrated on dealers I'd never been to before. But while I was there at the stand, I went through and see if there was anything else. I didn't really want to get into a long, protracted search dollar bin diving, or in this case, $3 book diving. And I reverted back to, like I said, the Invaders run, little runs I'm working on. And I went to the Defenders. I was looking for some books on that as well, but I didn't find any of those. But I did run across a Minor Key Marvel Spotlight number 31. And this right here is
the origin of Nick Fury, as well as the Infinity formula that I suppose keeps him young. I mean, he's from World War II, guys. He should be quite old by this point. And I've never read this book, but I seem to remember that Stan Lee hated this issue. I think he hated the concept of Nick Fury having this formula. I don't know. If you guys know the details on that, definitely reach out and let me know about that, because I think that's sort of what I've heard on that. But to be quite honest, this is for $3, and they had 4 or 5 issues at this particular dealer. This was a real minty condition right here. Surprisingly, 9.8s go for about $260. That was for a 9.8. Now, trust me, you get that 9.6, it drops off significantly. You better do a pre-screen, and you better be sure it's a 9.8. But not bad for a $3 pickup on something like that. So, kind of working on runs on this point, at least with the Invaders. So that's another aspect to the hobby. We talked about Michael Cho and getting things signed at the Baltimore Comic-Con, but what did I say earlier is I got to meet Michael Golden. I've met him before. I've had him sign things before, but this was a recent pickup that I picked up from Whatnot. It is the David Nakayama cover, trade dress cover to the facsimile reprint to Avengers Annual number 10, the reprinting of the first appearance of Rogue. And what I liked so much about this, when I talked about it when I picked it up, was you've got Rogue, who is bursting through the old Avengers Annual cover right there. And I kind of like that a lot. I hope to see David Nakayama at some point again, and hopefully we'll get him to sign this. But when I realized I was going up there to this little con up in Harrisburg, Michael Golden's going to be there, and I don't have a real Avengers Annual number 10 laying around. I've got a graded version. I've got 2 graded versions, but I don't have any raws. But this is one, I think, basically Michael Golden, to me, has 4 key comics that get signed. You've got Avengers Annual 10, and of course facsimiles now. You've got Micronauts number 1. You got Micronauts number 8, the first appearance of Captain Universe. And to me, Marvel Fanfare number 1. Now, I know he had all kinds of other things, including the run on the Nom, which was fantastic. But for me, those 4 books are the books that you would want to get signed. Well, I didn't have the raw original version of that, but when I picked this up, I knew I wanted Nakayama to sign it at some point, and I'm like, this would be pretty cool. Get the person who did the art on the interior. Hopefully we'll get Chris Claremont eventually, and of course I'll get David Nakayama if I get that chance to again. I saw him down at Heroes Con 2 years ago, so there's a chance that I'll get to see him again. Or who knows, hold on to this for a CGC signing at some point. But I really love this cover. They did have a Virgin cover. It's the same cover, but without the Avengers cover behind Rogue right there. And I didn't quite like that. I mean, I like the artwork, but I like the idea of her bursting out of that. So what was cool about talking with Michael Golden about this was he kind of wished that David Nakayama had done the artwork of what Rogue looked like more from the issue, not how she currently looks. I mean, that would have been probably even cooler to have her rendered like that than to have her look like this. I mean, everybody loves this look. Don't get me wrong. It's why you do this look. But it would have been more interesting to see what she looked like by David Nakayama as the version you see in the book right here. So that was pretty cool. And if you haven't been able to pick it up, it's a little hard. His autograph is right there. He did it in gold, although honestly black or even blue on that white would have popped a lot better. But I did have a nice moment talking with him, and I got a photo taken with him as well. So that was pretty cool. And then I'm still walking around, and there's a couple of dealers that had some things that I had not seen on the walls previously. And this is, like I said, why did I go to the show was to go to see dealers that I would not normally ever see. And one of these dealers, in fact, the last 2 dealers are from the Pittsburgh area, and they had 4 or 5 issues of Foom. And honestly, very rarely have I ever seen foam on the wall, except for maybe a couple of the big key issues. The Hulk issue was one in particular, and they didn't have those. In fact, the 5 or 6 that they had, not if you could get 9.8s and on any of them, you could do really good, but not necessarily key issues. So I had a chance to look at all 5 or 6 of those issues, and it's a newsprint material, prone to all kinds of damage, of course. And I took a look at them, and there's 2 I was looking at in particular that I was going to pick up, but there ended up being a lot of foxing on this newsprint. There ended up being water damage on there. And to be quite honest, I got this to eventually get graded. I was looking for a really high grade copy. I was hoping one of them or more of them would have met that criteria, because I'd love to get one of these graded. I think is a challenge. I haven't done a magazine size book like this, much less a newsprint cover like this. So I went through the books, and this is one that was probably second to the last in the books that I was interested in, to be quite honest. But one of the reasons I actually love it, not because just the condition looks really fantastic, is that it has this beautiful John Buscema artwork, and I can recognize that immediately on the cover here of these characters. So I like it for the issue. There I go again. You know, I talk about making investments in comics, and I don't want you guys to get the impression that I'm just doing this to make money. I buy books like this to resell. I do. But I buy books like this to resell, but I love these books because it has that beautiful artwork. So I'm caught in that between of being a collector and a fan and a seller. So as much as this is something I definitely bought for the potential to sell, but I also bought because I would love to have this in my PC no matter what as well. But that brings us to the last issue that I picked up, the last book I picked up the show, and I went by this dealer 3 times. I inspected the book on the second time. In fact, he had 2 copies, and he had already sold 2. And he had 2 copies of this less, and there was about a $50 price tag difference between the 2, but the covers on both, on inspection through the bag, without taking it out, looked fantastic on both of them. I mean, immaculate on both of them. Maybe on the cheaper one, maybe a little bit of rub on the spine, but kind of questionable if it really was a printer defect or if it was caused by human hands later on. And I asked him, I said, what's the difference between the prices? There's got to be a quality difference somewhere here. And he says he thinks it's on the back. So he takes out the less expensive book. And sure enough, there are some spotting, some foxing of the cover on the back. And as much as I am really, really good of doing cleaning and pressing, I have not explored the whole idea of trying to fix that kind of problem. Whitening pages, getting spots out, that's not my forte. And it's like, I'm not going to put this money into this book. Definitely, I'm not taking the lesser expensive one. But what am I going to do about the more expensive one? It's kind of in that price range where if I saw this on Infinity Comics and I'm only going to get 2 photos, a front and a back, and not be able to hold it up and look at the light and change the light angles or anything, what am I going to do? This price tag right now was right where I would have snapped it up on and bid on that on Infinity Comics on one of their auctions. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at the book, and he took it out and I looked at the back of it. It is a 9.8 candidate, no questions asked. And I ended up coming back at the very end of the show, and I picked it up. I bought yet another copy of Marvel Super Heroes number 8, Secret Wars. The origin of the black costume of Venom, basically. And this is a super minty copy. And what was nice was I basically asked, if I pay cash, can you do a little bit better? And he said, how about this? And I'm not going to get into prices because I did pick this up from Nerdbox Comics. I'll give him a shout out, and I'll put a link in the description as well. I don't want to get into prices. I don't want to get into negotiations on ones like this right here. But he knocked a few dollars off and then counted out the cash, and then he gave me another $10 back. He actually knocked off another $10 after I'd already given him the cash, and I appreciate that. So we're going to put this into CGC. Hopefully we'll get this in at the Baltimore Comic Con, and we'll get another 9.8 on Secret Wars number 8. I'm hoping, because this is a minty copy right here. But guys, that is it. That is my experience at the 4th State Comic Con in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. If you like today's show, definitely hit the like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. And guys, if you want to give me a comment on any of the books I picked up today, definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I'm losing my voice again. I'm going to have to go get something to drink. You guys take care, and remember, every comic has a story.